sorry about that, mate. I've got you now. Mate, you missed the big introduction I gave you, did you?
Mate, I did.
Mate, welcome to the show, Noel. Thank you so much for coming on. Please tell us how Noel Thornberry got started in boxing.
Well, mate, my dad used to box back in the late 60s, early 70s, and so I grew up, never had comic books. All I ever had was the old fighter magazines and the Ring magazine, and I read them all day, every day, pretty much, and I was infatuated by it. But our problem was we lived in a small town called Gatton, which we still live in, and we're a long way from any boxing gyms, and so it was a long time before we actually got into it. But that when I finally did start, we me and Ricky just sort of had a bag hanging under a tree in the backyard up in Davey Road, and that's how it sort of all come to pass.
Well, okay, please tell us about your amateur boxing career.
Well, mate, look, I didn't have any amateur fights,
okay.
And nor did Ricky.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there wasn't any local boxing clubs, and the way things sort of happened was I got into a bit of a strife as a teenager, and a local publican here took me down to Brisbane, and he said, I know one of the main sponsors of Reg Layton, who by chance used to train my father back in the 70s, and he was the major promoter in Brisbane Festival Hall for 40-odd years or 30 years. And so they took me down and introduced me to a guy named Gary Borkin, who owned the Melbourne Hotel. Gary was also instrumental in, he's one of the founding members of the Brisbane Broncos back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And he was a major sponsor for Festival Hall, and they moved me in with another boxer named Doug Sam. And Doug, of course, was a Commonwealth Games silver medalist and eventually challenged for the World IBF Super Middleweight title in Korea. So that was how I got involved in boxing.
Okay, geez, that explains it all. Okay, you had your pro debut in December 1984, Festival Hall, Brisbane, where you knocked out Gary Williams in round one. Please tell us about your first pro debut.
Yeah, well, it was, I might have just been turned 18, I think, and it was very exciting, and just went out there and I just started throwing punches. I don't know where they were going, but I was just hoping they'd land. And one good right hand hit, and that was enough to get me an early night. So Gary's a tough, durable guy that was getting around in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know all that much about him. I'd seen him fight the Mansfield Tavern once or twice before, and I thought, I'll try my luck, and it worked out pretty good.
What a great start to your career. Okay, you had a busy 1985, winning 3 fights but losing 2. In December 1986, you fought Tommy West, where you lost an 8-round points decision. What's your memories of the Tommy West fight?
Well, I remember being very nervous because I'd only had about 5 fights and no amateur background, and hadn't fought for 13 months, and Reg Layton, I was sitting up here at Gatton. I was actually at my grandmother's house. I took the call from Reg, and he said, "Do you want to have a go at this Tommy West?" And I said, "Well," I said, "Yeah, why not?" But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, he was one of the earliest Australian super middleweight champions, and he fought the likes of Oddy and Kevin Wagstaff and all them guys, and I had seen him fight, and I thought, well, this bloke can fight. But I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a go, and I come up short on the night, but no excuses, mate. I probably froze up a little bit, to be quite honest, because I didn't believe that I actually belonged there, because I just didn't have the experience to be there.
Yeah, right. Oh, don't be like that, mate.
Well, I didn't at the time, mate. You always look back at these things and sort of think to yourself, well, if he was this, if Noel was my boy, I probably wouldn't have taken that fight.
Yeah, because you could thump,
not
mate.
at the time, anyway.
Yeah, geez, you could thump. In November 1987, you defeated Laurie Howe with a 9th-round KO to capture the Queensland Middleweight Championships. What's your recollections of that fight?
Well, that was a good fight for me, because it was the first time that I'd ever really trained hard. I got a guy named Bill Barr who actually went on and did a bit of who was the fitness coordinator for Justin Crawford years later. But mate, Billy had a really good lot of really rigorous training schemes, and not so much to do with boxing on the technical side, but he got me very fit, and so I still paced myself. Look, I think that I could have probably done a little bit better if I had a little bit more nous in my corner, and knew a little bit more myself. We were very raw. We sort of only had a bag under a tree in the backyard, and me and Ricky used to just have a few punch-ups, and you'd call them more punch-ups than sparring because there wasn't much technical happening at the time.
I like that. Okay, moving along. This is getting interesting now. In March 1988, you won by 6-round knockout over future world kickboxing champ Alex Toohey. Please tell us about the Toohey fight. A lot of us box Alex Toohey quite a bit. What a nice fella Alex is. If you listen to mate, long time no see. But you fought Alex and you had a win over Alex. What a good fighter he was.
Mate, look, Alex Toohey was a very good fighter, and that was another bit of a late call up there, and because I'd won the fight in November 1987 against Laurie Howe, and then my next fight was against Alex. And I sort of kicked back and celebrated and didn't do a hell of a lot of bloody training, and then all of a sudden they said, you're going to fight Alex Toohey in 3 weeks, and so it wasn't the smartest thing I ever did. But so I had not a bad first round and second round, and then Alex was coming on as he does, and he was giving me some grief then for rounds 3, 4, and 5, and I landed a couple of good shots in round 5, and round 6 he walked on the right uppercut, and the fight finished. So
bingo.
But it was a really good win, and I'm still good friends with Alex to this day. So every time I see him. He's a really good bloke, and he kicked on and had a great career.
He sure did. Now, not many kickboxers make good boxers, but he was good at both. He was a good kickboxer and he was a good boxer, Alex. Most guys that do both are either good at one or the other, but Alex was he was an all-round fighter, Alex wasn't he?
He was, mate. Look, I reckon if he had put his mind to it, he would have been good at marbles too. He was good at everything. But it was the work ethic too, Paul. I think like he was one of them real workhorse guys. Like he went on to beat bloody Spike Chaney and Tango and all them guys.
Sure did.
They were super accomplished amateurs and pros. So
he sure did.
Hell of a fighter.
In December 1988, you had a rematch with Peter Masteriani, winning a 10-points decision and defending your Queensland middleweight championship. You loved that middleweight title, didn't you? Unfortunately, you were dropped twice in the 10th and final rounds. What's your memories of the Masteriani fight?
Well, mate, I actually got dropped in the 9th twice, and then bloody, but it was just absolute fatigue. I led into that fight. And I look back on this, after boxing I studied anatomy and physiology, and I touched on the fields of biochemistry as well. And knowing what I know now, I could have died in that fight. For 3.5 weeks, I was up at 83 kilo, and I had to try and make 72.5 kilo. And anyway, so the way I thought I'd do it was starve myself and not eat bugger all, and I was sucking on a bit of rock melon at night time, and in the mornings I'd get out of bed, and I'd sort of had to balance myself, and I'm thinking, geez, this is weird. Like my head was so, and now we all know it's a well-established fact that dehydration is consistent in almost all death and injury in the sport of boxing. And here I am as a young fella with no guidance because I'm self-trained, and sitting there and basically starving myself to death, sipping water during the day, and then trying to demand my body to go through all these training sessions.
It's madness,
isn't it? So dangerous.
It is, isn't it? It really is. And as you said, mate, it's been the cause of quite a few deaths in the boxing.
Yeah, yes, it has. But look, I ended up after that fight the next day. I was so sick the next day that I actually collapsed. I took 3 grand mal seizures. They put me in intensive care in the PA hospital in Brisbane, and the doctors said you're suffering from massive dehydration, and I'd had an intracranial bleed, which is why that I've been I'm quite pro the brain scanners now that Stuart Duncan's been working on.
Yeah.
So look, this is something that could have cost me my life, and it's through no fault of anybody else's. It's absolutely all my own. I promoted the fight. I trained myself for the fight, and I did everything for that fight. And very, very lucky. It wasn't much worse. But Peter Masteriani is a tough guy, and he just outlasted me. I won on points, but still, I was gone.
Yeah. In your final fight in April 1990, you had a rematch and won a 4th-round KO over Laurie Howe. What's your recollections of that fight? Your last one, mate.
Well, look, it was the last one after that one, after the fight where I collapsed from dehydration, and I went out there and I just couldn't see a future anywhere. I just thought, well, I'm still hitting the bloody bag under a tree, and I just wasn't in the sport. It was just that simple. I bloody thought to myself, oh, well, I'll come back a little bit later. Time's on my side. I'm only 23 years of age.
Jeez, that's young.
And in the interim, my younger brother Rick started training, and Rick never drank or smoked his whole younger life. And he sort of said to me, he said, well, look, he said, what do you reckon? He said, I have a go and you train me. Yeah. He said, because I won't, I'll do everything that I have to do, and I'll do anything you tell me to do. And so we sort of both learn on the job.
Yeah. So I love this bit that, the fact that you've given away what you just said, and you've had a chat to your brother, and you started training him. That's fantastic. He fought some of the best in the world, Ricky. What's your recollections of the fight he had with Joe Kazalaki for the WBO Super Middleweight Championship? That was in Cardiff, where Rick was outpointed. What a fight that was.
Yeah. Well, it was, and Joe's a hell of a fighter. As time went on, he's now considered the bloody best super middleweight that bloody boxed. So he done very, very well to do as well as he did. To be honest, Rick had it was a super fight with massive underdogs. I always remember getting over there, and Frank Warren, all those guys were, they were very dismissive, and today everyone was talking 2 rounds, 3 rounds, but the thing they didn't count on was Ricky had a world-class chin. He had one of the best chins in the super middleweight division, and couldn't catch Calzaghe because Joe was a full-time boxer. They had sparring on tap, they had bloody, Rick was holding down a full-time job and boxing in the afternoons. So makes a big difference, and I'm not saying that Rick was going to beat Joe Calzaghe. Joe Calzaghe is an all-time great, but it was a pleasure to spend time. I'm very proud that Rick did as well as he did against him.
Oh, we sure did. So, what did you like fighting better or training your brother better? Because you didn't have much rest, did you, mate? You finished boxing and went straight into. I think training fighters more suited you, mate. What do you think?
Well, look, it definitely did, because, mate, when you have no guidance and no direction, and you can't see what's happening, and you're trying. I used to train, manage, and promote myself. Yeah. And I just went, holy hell, my head's spinning here. Yeah. And look, it was great fun. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I wouldn't take a bit of it back.
You do it all again, wouldn't you, mate?
Oh, shit, yeah, mate.
Is that yes? Straight out, yes. Okay, in March 2002. Mate. Oh, God, I love that. In 2002, Rick travelled to Germany and fought Sven Oki for the IBF Super Middleweight Championship. Again, Rick was outpointed. What's your memories of the Oki fight? That was a cracker.
Well, yeah, it was, mate. Look, Rick had been he'd been retired for about 2 years, and he not retired, just not active. Yeah. There was never any formal retirement. It was just inactive, and then he had a fight. Excuse me. He had 1 or 2 fights on his comeback, and then jumped into the ring with Sven. And mate, Sven is a very good fighter. He was just very, very technically correct, and he was basic, but he was a master of the basics. And when you're a master of the basics, you make very few mistakes. So he always very, very smart guy, Sven, and 400 odd amateur fights as well, and had a very good trainer too, Ollie Wagner. So, but anyway, Rick come up short over 12 rounds there, but it was no shame. It just everything's about timing. If you combine the records of Calzaghe and Otke, they're something like about 86-0 between them. No one beat either one of them. And that was the two guys Ricky got his chance against.
Yeah, geez, wow, didn't look at it like that. Okay, moving along. In November 2002, Rick fought Anthony Mundine in the Gold Coast. Unfortunately, Rick was stopped in the 11th. What do you remember about the Mundine fight?
Oh, look, it was good, mate. And we're still good friends with Chock and Tony and bloody Coda and all them guys till today. So we don't live in each other's pocket, but it's always we're all good friends, all get on well, and it was a lot of fun at the time. Rick was at the end of his tether, and there'd been outside influences and all the rest in his life, and he was. I'll tell you what happened. It was a funny thing. Rick was sparring Paul Briggs.
Yeah.
He sparred Paul Briggs 6 3-minute rounds, and he sparred Sam Sullivan 6 3-minute rounds. And that's hard work sparring them two guys back to back. And one day, and Sam Sullivan, Paul Briggs is a murderous puncher and a great fighter. But Sam Sullivan's pulled this little left rip out, and it's hit Ricky, and Ricky didn't. There was nothing. There was no indication of anything. And anyway, it popped the cartilage in his rib, just on the right-hand side of his rib, and it's still prominent there today. Yeah. And anyway, so we went into the Monday. This is 12 days before the fight. Yeah. And I said to Coda, I said, Rick's got a bad shoulder, so we might have to postpone it. Coda said, mate, we can't do it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, we went ahead with the fight, and Chock was a good boxer. He was an up-and-coming, legit world champion. And I don't think Rick would have beaten Chock at that stage of his career anyway, regardless of a rib injury or not. Yeah. It was just timing, as I said before. Rick was at the end of his tether. He'd been fighting 17 years. Yeah. And Chock won the fight and hit Rick. I seen Rick's face change in the 4th round, and I said to Rick, are you right? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, we're fucking here now, mate. There's not much we can do. I said, fair enough. So we, and then you'll notice the punch that stops at the left rib hit Ricky right there, and he's just like, but that injury still sits there on his rib today. Does it?
Jeez, eh? Yeah, what a warrior he was, mate. Okay, please tell us how you started training Alex Leopold.
Well, look, I was training Masolinos at the time, and Mace had just won the WBA middleweight title. So Mace said to me, because he'd come out here to Gatton, he'd stay 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it was, and just do stints. And anyway, so Mace said to me, he said, look, Noel, there's a Samoan heavyweight boxer fighting down in Brisbane tonight. I'd like to go and watch it. And he was, Alex was fighting a guy named Nerman Sabenovich. And it was at the Brisbane Broncos, and Nerman and Alex scored it was a draw over 6 rounds. Very hard fight, but because Alex was younger then and smaller. And anyway, Alex got Alex's dad got talking to Masolino, and they said that maybe Alex should come out and do some training with us. So I just spoke to Alex this morning, as a matter of fact. Alex Leopold Jr. is going to be something else in the future too.
Geez, that's interesting. Jeez, eh? Nerman Savanovic, I see him around, mate. He's still around, Nerman. He could be tuning in now. He was a pretty handy fighter, wasn't he, mate?
Mate, very, very skilled European boxer.
Mate, you're in the corner for the Alex Leopold challenge when he challenged Vladimir Klitschko in Germany for the heavyweight championship. Unfortunately, Alex was stopped in the 5th round. Before we go any further now, this is where I met you. My good friend Wayne Cousins called me up. He was your media guy for Alex, And you were at the Zoo Academy. Yeah, and I come and met you I think it was the first time I met you, mate. At that time when you were in camp, I come to the zoo camp and I finally met you.
Yeah.
About back then, yeah.
I remember well.
It was a buzz, mate, been watching all them heavyweight spar down at the Zoo Academy. Okay, what's your memories of the Vladimir Klitschko fight? That would have been something else to be there, mate.
Oh, look, it was a long road there, and Alex had a great win prior to that against Denis Boytsov, who was undefeated in 33 fights. And anyway, so he earned his number one position.
Yeah.
And he didn't. There was a lot of nerves. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of outside influences that if I could go back, I would change, and I'd create a little bit of distance. And but like we all got 2020's vision in hindsight. But I sort of it was one of them fights that El sort of didn't perform anywhere near his best. And even at his best, whether or not it was enough to beat Vladimir Klitschko, I'm not quite sure. But he certainly had the power to worry any heavyweight in the world. It's just that that wasn't his night. Vladimir was great, as he always is, and but a great experience because Alex, it makes him the only Australian to fight for the lineal, and when I say this lineal, not alphabet, lineal heavyweight championship of the world since 1906. So like if you go back right through the history of Australian boxing, nobody fought Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano, Gene Tunney, no but Mike Tyson, no Australian or Australian-based fighter actually fought the heavyweight champion, and Vladimir Klitschko was the heavyweight champion, not a version of the title. He was the champion.
Yeah, he sure was. I remember Alex saying after the fight his legs just froze in front of that big crowd. His thighs, he couldn't move them.
Yeah.
He froze up, didn't he?
Look, he did, and that's it's easy to sit on an armchair and be critical, but that is exactly what happened, and mate, he just didn't. It just wasn't his night, and that's life. And I'm very, very proud of everything that he achieved.
That's fantastic. Okay, please tell us your view from the corner when Masolinos stopped Evans Ashira in the second round and captured the WBA middleweight championship.
Mate, that was a great experience. Look, I came to meet Masolino through another boxer that I trained for quite some time, and that's Shawn Sullivan. And Australians will best remember Shawn Sullivan for his wars with Anthony Mundine and Danny Green. But great bloke, Shawn, and we're still friends. We talk often. But we all travelled over to the United States together. Me, Ricky, Masolino, Shawn Sullivan, and Sharky Raymond.
Oh, well, true.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, so we had a lot of fun over there, and mate, look, the plan was for Mace always likes to go out there and just feel what they got in the first round, and he went out there and we just sort of figured anything you can touch, you can hit. So we just needed to get him, try and get his distance, take his time early, but he definitely had to establish the fact that he had power at some stage in the first round. And anyway, so Mace went out there, and he was calmer than I thought he was going to be. He was so calm, like he walked around the ring, and it was a quite intimidating setup. Like we're down in Don King's backyard at the High Life from Ton down in Miami, Florida, and Tim Witherspoon's and the former heavyweight champion of the world's in the corner with Evans, Ashira, etc. And anyway, we've gone and Mace has gone out there. He's so calm, and he dropped the right hand halfway through the first round. And you'll see Evans Ashira. He's got a very good poker face, but you can just see his eyes change. And he went, "What the fuck was that?" Like he just. And anyway, so very, very close towards the end of the first round, Mace is they were in close in a clinch. He stepped back and threw a straight right hand, and Evans Ashira sort of dropped to the canvas. The bell rang during the count.
Yeah.
but he walked back to the corner. He never recovered, and there was 2 more knockdowns. 44 seconds into the second round, and the fight was over.
Yeah.
With 2 more knockdowns. So,
would have been great. That would have been great. A great experience being there for that.
Unbelievable, mate.
Yeah.
We were so happy.
Okay,
couldn't happen to a nicer bloke.
Yeah. True. What's your recollections of Masolinos' first title defence in Germany, where he lost the points decision to Felix Stern?
Well, in as far as that fight's concerned, we were hoping to get Mace fighting on a regular basis, and anyway, so Mace, we had a promotional agreement with Don King, and that's a massive bloody regret. Having anything to do with the bloke, although he taught us a lot of lessons, most of them were painful. But mate, what a bloke. But anyway, mate, he's a genius in his own right. But Don King kept Mace sitting on ice for 2 years.
Did he?
So after he won that fight in March, he never fought. He never fought till 2006. One was in May the 1st he fought, he won the title. He never fought till about April 2006 from memory, or March 2006. And you just need activity, especially at that top level. Everybody's gunning for you. You need to be on your game.
You do. What an interesting interview this has been, mate. We're coming to the end now. Before we go, are you training any boxers to this day?
I'm training my 3 sons, Tyler, Cassidy and Rube.
You couldn't help yourself, could you, Noel? Yeah, did they get guided in there by Dad, or did they just want to do it?
Mate, look, they've been around so much. Curiosity killed the cat. Mate.
Yeah, I love that.
Mate, they love it. The boys, like, I walk out in the backyard, and because we still train out of a backyard gym, mate, I walk out in the backyard and they're parrying punches and slipping punches and tying each up and either up and grappling and all the rest of it. So, very, very smart. They're very astute. Now today's you got the benefit of YouTube and all the rest. Yeah. And mate, then I'm also training Alex Leopold Jr.
Yeah.
And EJ Leopold.
Okay.
So the 2 brothers, it's the next generation coming through.
Yeah, they got the goods, eh? I can hear it in your voice, Noel. They've got the goods.
They've got the goods, mate. Yeah, they're going to be good. Yeah.
And your son Cassidy, I've seen him fight twice. When I've been up to watch Brendan Smith shows, I've seen your son fight twice up there now. He looks all right too, mate.
Yeah.
Boxing. Go on.
No, Cass will go all right. He's very, very dedicated.
Yeah. Geez, boxing will never leave the Thornberry family, will it, mate?
Well, I don't think so, mate. Everybody's, even if it's just to stay fit, it's just it's a good alternative.
It sure is, isn't it?
It is, mate. It is. Yeah. So, I better mention some of the old boxers that we used to train. So we had all the Gat boys and we had Danny Buzzer and Glenn Fitzpatrick, and even Sol Curry was here from Ipswich, and Lowell Zada, and we've had a lot of good fighters here over the years, and Alan Renish, a lot of good fighters over the years we've had out here in the little old Gatton town, and of course Shawn Sullivan, Shawn, he'll be best remembered for his fights with Mundine and Green, as I said before, but he's one of the toughest guys I've seen.
It just runs back into the family, the Mcivers, eh? You related to them? Tell us about them, mate. The Mcivers, eh? Were you relays as well that were in the boxing?
Well, Errol Mciver's my mother's brother.
Yeah,
and Errol had,
Uncle,
I think he had 300, Uncle Errol, So I think he had about 301 amateur and 10 fights.
Golly.
And 40-odd pro fights, and his two sons both spent a lot of time in the gym back in the days down St Mary's, down over at Billy Harrison and Ray Wheatley's gyms over in St Mary's, and Rod never ended up having a fight, but he was one of the better fighters I've ever seen that never had a fight. And then his younger brother Stephen, I think Stephen had about 7 fights.
Yeah. What years were they fighting, mate? What years would have they been around?
In the mid mid-90s.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give you an idea of the potential of Stephen Mciver. He turned up here in Gatton one day, and we didn't have an opponent for this boxer. The boxer had 11 wins, 6 losses, but 11 knockouts. And that guy's name was Moses Sorovi. Now,
okay.
Sorovi could fight and he could punch. He even had knockout victories over Adrian Bellum, the Australian cruiserweight champ. But Stephen come up and we'd had a pull-out the day before. And anyway, I said to Stephen, do you want to fight this guy, this Moses Sorovi? And Stephen said, yeah, why not? And this is on one day's notice, and as a kid that was probably about his second pro fight or third pro fight, and he wasn't doing anything, and he jumped in there and he outpointed Moses. And I thought that was a massive achievement because I had tons of respect for Moses Sorovi.
Yeah.
He's one of the... I think he wound his career up with about 22 wins, 22 knockouts.
Big hitter, wasn't he? Yeah.
He had losses, but he could punch. I
bumped him in Fiji in 2011. Well, look, Noel Thornberry, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, mate.
Thanks very much, Paul. Great to have a chat.
Yeah, we'll cut it there. Next time I'm up there, mate, we'll have another chat, eh?
Mate, over a beer, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Noel.
Okay, Paul.
See you, mate. Bye for now.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye, mate. And that was Noel Thornberry. What an interesting interview that was. We'll go to a break.